Finally, some good news for Newcastle. It was felt like for a long time there, it was just going from bad to worse, and the season was maybe going to just totally derail and become ultimately a complete failure. But we got some good news this week. The Premier League couldn't pass through their vote thing, so it means Saudi Arabia is now here we go for January for the loan market. The Newcastle squad has been absolutely decimated, and with that loan option now available to them, the January transfer window just got a whole lot interesting. Not only that, but I'm also going to be making my St James's Park debut. I'm going to be in town to watch Newcastle host Man United. And guys, when I'm in town to watch a game, it's normally a lot of fun. I cannot wait. Newcastle Man United is one of the ultimate Premier League fixtures, so I'm super hyped to be going to St James's Park for my first game to see Newcastle at home, and it's such a great fixture as well. Not only that, guys, but I'm actually going to be giving away 2 tickets to the match. One of them I'm going to give away in the comment section of this video here. I want to know from you guys who are subscribed to the channel and have liked the video and who leave a comment. I want you to tell me who the #1 player is that Newcastle have to bring in the January transfer window. And the other ticket, I'll be giving it away on my Instagram. To check out that competition giveaway as well, there'll be a link in the description of this video to my Instagram account, and you'll be able to find the competition post there as well. So we're coming out the international break. It feels like there's maybe a little bit of on the up for Newcastle. In the video today, we will be checking in on the state of the squad and exactly who are the 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 players that Newcastle could be bringing in from Saudi Arabia in the January transfer window. It is here we go time, guys. I hope you have fun with this one. At any point in the video, you do laugh, you learn, you like something, or you want to win a ticket or something, please do like and subscribe to the channel, share, retweet, and all that good stuff, guys. Stay out of trouble, and let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, this is where we left off the Newcastle squad last time we looked at it. Unfofrtunatley out for the rest of the season. Last I remember, Isak should be back after this international window, but otherwise, there's some injuries in the squad, and it's rather threadbare now as a result. Now, these are the players that are all owned by the Saudi Arabian clubs that also own Newcastle, and I've tried to put them as best I can in their club colours and kind of in their position. Now, we're going to have a lot of fun kind of going through these players, who could actually fit into the Newcastle team, who might actually be possible, etc. Now, there's a few easy ones that we can kind of throw away here. Unfortunately, I would love Neymar to be an option. Looking at that Newcastle team, that left-hand side of the pitch was so bare, and imagine seeing Neymar in the Prem for Newcastle. Wouldn't that just be simulation theory at its absolute best? But he's injured. Don't see that happening. And N'Golo Kante has also recently just picked up an injury, so by the time he recovers from that, when the January window is, when Newcastle might actually need to want to use him, I don't think that's going to happen either. Now, the forward position is probably the one that grabs my eye the most, because of course we've got up here the legend that is Cristiano Ronaldo. Would he come to Newcastle on a loan? Now, if Isak's fit and back in town, maybe you don't want to bring that, entourage. You don't want to bring that whole thing, the circus that would come with Ronaldo into Newcastle. But I can guarantee you one thing, if Ronaldo did come into this squad, he would be motivated like hell to score as many goals as possible. That is what drives the man. And the way Newcastle are set up, it is in favour of the centre forward getting into where it matters, being that arrowhead, being the finisher of the move, of the counter-attack, of, the build-up play that Newcastle have been generating this season. So I do think he would actually fit in kind of well. And, whether he would go or not is another matter, of course, but I think it's a really interesting one to think about. Mitrovic does seem to have put on the pound since he's been out of Saudi Arabia, and although I'm not sure where Serbia are with the Euros in the summer, he should be motivated to come to that. Is him and ASM, is the fact that they've both played for Newcastle already, is that a positive? Does that make it easier for these moves to happen? They're both, of course, Premier League proven in that sense as well. But let's say I think Mitrovic has probably put on a couple of kilograms and maybe isn't the part anymore. And let me know, maybe Geordies that are listening to this as well, maybe if you've already got a ticket for the game, you can let me know what you think about ASM. Would you bring him back in on loan? Because you didn't really sell him for that much money, which, when we think about the whole networking thing, that people think that Newcastle or Man City or Brighton or Chelsea or whoever else it might be up to it is going to exploit is the FFP part of it, like just absurd transfer fees for players. And the Alisson Maximin one didn't fall into that category. So I wonder if that maybe keeps the door open for someone like him to come back to Newcastle. So you, Geordies, let me know what you think about that. And how good is this? The guys at QuinnBet have enhanced their UK welcome offer, where you can now get a free bet up to £35. It's for new customers to sign up only. You can check out the full terms and conditions on the website, quinnbet.com, or by clicking on the link that's in the description of the video. By clicking on that link, you support all the content here at the channel, Quinny 3001, so I thank you in advance if you do so. It looks really impressive to me, but it is 18+, and remember folks, always gamble responsibly. But see, quite seriously, see between Benzema and Firmino, I could make a really credible argument for why they would both be interested, why they would both be motivated, why Newcastle could probably wrap up the deal quite nicely for them, and why they might go for it. Now, Firmino, like, don't get me wrong, like, he's obviously a Liverpool legend, very Premier League proven, doesn't really have anything to gain by coming back, but he is Brazilian as well. He's not like, he's not like African. He's not from that part of the world like maybe some of these other guys are. And, maybe coming back to England for 6 months, getting very well paid for doing so, having some fun in the Premier League, kind of no thrills, no pressure. I definitely wouldn't put it past Bobby, because he's kind of fell out of the reckoning in the international scene. Maybe that would help rectify that for him. So, it kind of depends on some details I'm not too familiar with. But Firmino would be fun, and I think he would definitely be welcomed over at Tyneside, and there's no way he doesn't make Newcastle better. But Benzema hasn't done the Premier League yet, and his team in Saudi Arabia does feel quite disjointed. They've changed manager. They've also got Jota, who they don't want anymore either. He also comes into the conversation here, I guess. But with either of these players, I think Jota would theoretically fit into this Newcastle side very well, but I do worry that if, like, Nuno Espirito Santo, I'm not saying he's like gospel or something like that, right? But if he's taking Jota into training in the Saudi League and not wanting to play him, like, a Premier League manager making that assertion, like, that does... And I love Jota. I think he's fantastic, but there's no smoke without fire. There's something about that. So I don't know what it is necessarily. Maybe we'll find out as time goes on. But that does, it raises my eyebrow, let's say. So Jota, I don't know what to think about that for Newcastle specifically. I think if Ange wanted him at Tottenham, that would make a bit more sense, because Ange knows him and stuff like that. So if he could make the assertion that he could get something out of him, then fair enough. But maybe there's a reason Ange doesn't go for him, which also compounds that eyebrow raise, So, so Jota, again, you can let me know what you think, but I don't really see it, to be honest with you, for Newcastle. I really think Benzema is maybe the one that might be a bit more motivated by it, but again, don't really see it happening too much. Between Malcolm and Otavio, these are both guys that have never made the move to the Premier League, and I'm sure they've both had obscene amounts of interest from the likes of Newcastle, Aston Villa, West Ham, Leicester City, Arsenal, even at different stages of their kind of recent re-emergence, and maybe one or two other teams, and they've never made the move for whatever reason. They're both internationals. They've both been at some big European clubs, both get Champions League experience. So I don't think that's going to change. I don't think Malcolm or Otavio are going to be in the frame here. Mahrez, I don't think has got any interest at all, along with Sadio Mane. They've got AFCON coming up also. They're probably quite settled in their new environment, being the superstar, and what's maybe a more of a hometown kind of feel for them, perhaps, just geographically. It's in the same, and maybe I'm being a wee bit thing me here, but because I know Africa's really big, but same time zone. I don't know if it's even that different to the UK, to be honest with you, but so I don't think Mane or Mahrez are even available in this conversation, really, to be honest with you. So really, when it comes down to it for Newcastle, the main problem they've got, like Isak, Wilson, we could look at, Mitrovic, you could look at Firmino. There is probably somebody that you could drag in there on loan to fill a gap to make it work. But for the overall picture, because remember, you can't bring them in right now. It's the January window. Isak should be back kind of soon, and I'm not too sure really what level. It's still just a hamstring injury I'm getting, so I'm not too sure exactly how long to worry about Callum Wilson, because again, by the time you get to January, the striker problem might not be that much of an issue where bringing someone like that in is warranted. You maybe still want to get your number 3 guy in, but that is like a number 3 striker that can support these guys. Or maybe you do go for a Ronaldo or someone better, put them at top and try and lift the level. I don't think that's the way Eddie Howe and Newcastle are building, so I don't see that happening. I think it would be more a number 3 striker to try and pull up with. So when we look at the depth chart for Newcastle, quite simply, midfield and centre-back is all that's left here from the big players that Saudi Arabia have and what Newcastle desperately need. I think centre-back is probably the least interesting, so we'll quickly knock that one away. Between Luis Felipe, the 2 goalkeepers, Mendy and Bono, and Ibanez, I don't see any of them coming into the reckoning. Now, Koulibaly is an interesting one, right? Because great career at Napoli, didn't quite work out at Chelsea, so maybe he would have a wee bit of unfinished business, perhaps, and I could maybe see that happening. But with AFCON also coming up, it's probably not the right time for Koulibaly if that was something that was on the agenda. And again, maybe similar to Mahrez and these other guys, he's a wee bit closer to home. Maybe he's quite comfortable. He's less likely. But Mary Demiral and Aymeric Laporte are both guys that would definitely feature for Newcastle in defence, particularly for as long as Botman's out. Somebody like Laporte coming in would make if you're going to lose Botman for 2 or 3 months. Bringing Laporte in January, who's thinking about the Euros in the summer, would be fantastic for a couple of months until Botman comes back. You then don't need to rush Botman back either. And, you know, you can treat that injury correctly because, you know, with your team being so thin, you can't rush anyone back in. And Demiral, I think, is a really good defender, really good ball progressor. Not played at the Premier League level, so maybe a little bit of a less known, but Aymeric Laporte, I think, would be an absolute stick on, a guy that should be motivated enough to just come back to the Premier League for a couple of months before the Euros and just play. No frills, just play for Newcastle. Like, not no frills, you know, but like, you can just come in and enjoy it in that sense. Enjoy the experience of being at a team fighting for something again and, you know, all that good stuff. The Premier League. Now, Fabinho's an interesting one because I think he would add a lot into this Newcastle midfield, and even just by adding him in, I think the versatility you've got in the rest of the midfield would become way more apparent and way more valuable, particularly with Tonali being out. So I think Fabinho would be an absolute masterclass of a pull. But I don't know, something tells me it's probably not that likely to happen. I would love to see Seko Fofana make a move in, but again, with him having AFCON coming up, I don't think he's going to move. Seko Fofana, if you're not aware, is the guy, you know how Lons are playing Arsenal in the Champions League? Well, he was like the main guy for them in midfield, helped them get to third in the table or second, whatever they finished, and made the money move. He's Ivory Coast international, very, very good defensive midfielder. And again, similar to Fabinho, I think he would add a lot. But we've seen from Eddie Howe, he's only after eights. He's only after box-to-box machines, which rules out Frank Kessie for me. There's been a real physical slump from him. I've seen at AC Milan and at Barca. And if he's over in Saudi Arabia, again, Ivory Coast international, I don't think you're going to see him either. Now, I've avoided mentioning Ruben Neves because I think he's the most boring one. Everyone is the bloody headline on all the stories. He's an 8, he's box-to-box, he knows the Prem, he's a very good level, he's relentlessly linked to Newcastle, and yes, quite obviously, he does come in and add something to the midfield. But I don't think he adds Tonali level replacement for you, really. I think you can definitely have him in alongside Bruno and Joe Linton, and it'll be a decent enough team, but I don't think it's as ambitious or, you know, as an upgrade in the midfield department as Tonali offered when he came in. But I do think he's an absolute no-brainer. If he's up for doing it, you just bring him in, don't ask any questions. Brozovic would be a fantastic addition in theory, but I do worry that, again, Brozovic, similar to some of these other players I've mentioned, has had plenty of opportunity to come to the Premier League already, has had a lot of offers over his career, I'm sure, at certain stages, and for whatever reason, he's never ever done it. So he's said before he's went to Saudi Arabia for the money, he's there. And I don't know, I suppose if the money keeps rolling, I suppose he'll kind of go anywhere. And I think his playmaker versatility is lovely for Newcastle, would really give them a different dimension, but it really will put pressure on the rest of the team. And with them not having an out-and-out defensive midfielder, having someone like Brozovic, who you need to allow to just hang around here a little bit more, doesn't feel like it will be as much of a hand in, you know, hand in the glove kind of thing. So I don't know how to feel about that. Anderson Talisca, again, I just don't think that's going to happen, although I would love to see it just for the FIFA banter, you know. But Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, for me, is probably the number one guy Newcastle should be getting, because he is better than Sandro Tonali. He is probably better than any other player we've mentioned in this video so far, in terms of, for me, the impact that they could make on this Newcastle team, the impact they could make on the Premier League, and just in general, like how well they would actually fit into the team. Putting him in the right side of midfield with Bruno, Joe Linton, with Longstaff, whoever else you want to kind of throw in there, Ruben Neves maybe even as well. Milinkovic-Savic is, for me, a guy I'd love to see playing in the Premier League. I think has all the attributes to do it. And I think, like, he's had some opportunities happen as well. But Lazio were a very difficult selling club. And I do think opportunities have been taken away from him almost, where, you know, just deals couldn't get agreed over the line in the end. And now, this would be an easy deal to get done. Again, he doesn't need to worry about African Cup of Nations or any of that jazz like some of these other players do. And I just think this is the one Newcastle have to make. Now, the last player on screen is Gabri Veiga. I would love to see Gabri Veiga also in the Premier League. But similar to Jota, I'm really worried about how little of an impact they've made on such a low level of football, with them being previously much better at a much higher level. So I think it's maybe better to let Vega maybe go back to Spain or something like that for this season and just let him develop and figure himself out. If I was running Newcastle, I would have absolutely no shame, and I would go and get these 5. I would just go and bring these 5 guys in on loan now. Get it signed, sealed, delivered. Now that's a squad. That's a team that can still go on and do something this season in the league, in Europe, Europa League. I think you'll do it, guys. I think you'll qualify for it. And have no shame about it, because I do feel that this is going to be a subject that's going to roll on this feels like a kind of Mascherano-Tevez moment in some ways. If Newcastle can just go and pull 5 players in, I would love to see them do it for their own benefit, their own gain in this instance. Get these guys in, help themselves out, because they've had a really bad state of affairs. They've not got FFP in their favour to go and spend money relentlessly to make all the improvements that they need to, because these rules are going to change as time goes on. You can just feel that it will change. And now Newcastle, why not? Go for it. Get the guys in, make it happen, make sure you have a strong season, because the other teams that didn't pass this rule through as well, there was 7 of them. I think you needed 8 or something like that. So you've also got Newcastle, you've got Man City, Chelsea are now in this kind of multi-ownership kind of finagly thing. Brighton are also involved in that. Aston Villa are also involved in that, I'm sure, as well. And then Man United as well. I think if they're a selling club, that rule change actually makes their club less valuable, because if you want to buy that club and you think about you want to network some clubs, maybe you have a network of clubs already, then that would devalue Manchester United. So I think you've got a lot of interested parties in these rules existing in a healthy way. And for the moment, it's just, there's no restrictions on it, there's no ban on it, it's just a regular transfer, no one's looking at it any differently. And because these players all come from teams in Saudi Arabia are not governed by UEFA or the Premier League, so they don't need to worry about any FFP on their end. Newcastle really don't need to pay these guys anything, in theory. I think they could maybe pay them a nominal sum to maybe keep everything square. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, like, you know, when they sell Alan Saint-Maximin for like 28 million or something relatively nominal in the football transfer world, you know, I think you can see that Newcastle aren't going to do anything too underhanded in that respect. But I definitely don't think they should be shy about it at this point. They need a lot of players. There's a lot of players there they can get their hands on. Go and get them. And I say, don't be shy about it. Don't, you know, while the going's good, make it good. But yeah, very unlikely that they do 5 overall. Probably most likely it's going to be 1 or 2. I'll be really interested to catch the comment section on this video to see what one you guys think is going to be the one that Newcastle do bring in the January transfer window to help their ranks. I do think there will be some permanent signings as well, because I think that's the way Eddie Howe and Newcastle are trying to work, is that this would be the head of, you know, that ownership group. In that sense, they're not like looking to borrow and beg from each other. They want Newcastle to be a titan, to be a, you know, like a giant, which they are. You know, that's the way they want to mould it. So I think it will be permanent signings they'll be mainly interested in the January window. But the way FFP works, they will need to have some interesting loans, I think, to help them out in their time of need. On screen there now is some other stuff that I've made YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I'll catch you at St James's Park. Take care. Bye-bye.